Good morning and welcome to Joe Stunner Boxing. Regis Prograis wins a unanimous decision over JoJo Diaz, and this was a terrific fight. It was a 10-rounder, two southpaws. JoJo Diaz, this, believe it or not, was his 7th defeat in 9 fights. But honestly, ill discipline has cost him some of those, what could have been perhaps victories. He's been up and down the weights, up and down, like a horse draws. And to be honest with you, I thought he's going to get blown away because he came in at his heaviest, 142 and a quarter. No, in no shape or form is he really a 140 pounder, a super lightweight or even a welterweight. If you're 142 and a quarter, you're actually technically a welterweight. But this guy began his career at featherweight, won a belt at 135, which he held briefly. It's 7 defeats in 9 fights. He's better than that, and he shouldn't have that many defeats on his record. And how do I know he's better than that? Because he gave Regis Prograis competitive hell. I did think that Prograis won the fight, unanimous decision. I had it, 96, 93, I think, which was close to the one of the guys had it 90, 98, 92. The other two had it 96, 94. I gave JoJo Diaz a 10-8 round in the first, because even though he was being outboxed for the first 2 and a bit minutes, he landed a big hook on Prograis, possibly the temple, and Prograis' legs unhinged. He didn't go down. So a lot of people are saying, well, you've got to hit the floor to have a 10-8 round. I don't think so, because he was all over the place, and JoJo jumped all over him and smacked him around, and Prograis offensively was looking excellent, really, really excellent. But when you consider his last 2 fights were defeats, one was to Jack Catterall, and he was on the floor 3 times in that fight. And prior to that, he lost every round against Devin Haney. He was completely whitewashed, and he was on the floor. Now, Catterall and Devin Haney are not big punchers. They're not big one-punch, bangers. But Prograis was hitting the floor against those guys. And to go in against a guy who began his career at featherweight and former lightweight champ, and Prograis himself was a former champ at 140, of course. He lost an undisputed fight against Josh Taylor. But when you consider how great that fight was, and it was a fantastic contest with both guys shipping punishment, when you consider how good his jaw looked then, and you could have given him that fight against Taylor. Close, tough, highly competitive fight, brilliant fight. But when he gets breathed on, he shakes. And to be honest with you, I don't think he really recovered from that first round, Prograis, because Diaz was walking forward, very high guard, and was trying to time Prograis with single shots. He did start letting his hands go more in the second half of the fight, where he'd jump on Prograis and rattle off a combo. But quite simply, Prograis' offense was consistent and extremely slick, and he was able to let his hands go with absolute consistency. And he was landing enough. He wasn't landing everything. If you throw that many punches, you're probably not going to land, all of them. Well, you won't land all of them. But he was landing enough for me to completely outwork Diaz in most of the rounds. Now, the commentators, it was on DAZN, this fight, were, adamant that this was a really close fight. I don't think it was a particularly close fight, but it was ultra competitive, simply because Prograis' legs were stiff for virtually the entire fight. He could barely, bounce. There was no real bouncing. They were leaden and stiff. And there were a couple of other occasions when Diaz, I wouldn't say rocked. Well, no, I mean, they probably did rock Prograis. There was even one occasion when Diaz, who had to really impose his physicality on Prograis, pushed him over and then gave him a sort of long right hand half punch while he was down, which was a bit naughty. Prograis hung his right hand way too low, and because of that, you could see the jeopardy, potential jeopardy. And that's one of the things that made this fight so exciting, because Prograis could not put a dent in Diaz for all his punches. Diaz he's an amazingly tough man, but he was completely outworking him, and yet when Diaz landed, Prograis looked very uncomfortable. Now, Diaz was also cut. In fact, he was cut in 2 places on the left eye. The first one it must have been a deep cut, because even though it looked like a nick, but it must have gone very deep, because blood was covering his face for many of these rounds, and the corner was struggling to stop the bleeding. And the doctor must have looked at this cut three times during the fight. But Diaz, who does have a lot of scar tissue around the eyes, he does tend to cut a bit. He also had a cut very late on in the fight, maybe the last 2-3 rounds, a slice across the eyelid. So that left eye was in some state. But Prograis, he couldn't really, he couldn't capitalise really, because he just couldn't put a dent in this guy. Diaz is a tough man. I mean, the age difference, Prograis, JoJo's 32, which is, as we know, not particularly young. He's not ancient, but he's got a lot of miles on the clock, a lot of miles, when you consider the people that, he's been fighting. I mean, he lost a split decision to Abraham Montoya. That's one of those fights he probably should have won. He's only been stopped once, and that's by Oscar Duarte. More about him later. TKO'd in 9 rounds. I think he was on his feet. Was he on his feet? I think he was when he got stopped. But he's lost. He's fought Devin Haney as well. He got outpointed. He's fought in Zepeda, went the distance with him. I mean, he's got a lot of miles on the clock with against very good men. He won his title off Tevin Farmer, and we know Tevin Farmer can fight a bit. And yeah, I mean, I said earlier that he was I said he was a lightweight champion. In actual fact, JoJo was a super featherweight. It was the IBF. He won the IBF super featherweight title. He did hold a belt at lightweight, but it was one of those interim things. I think that's right. I'm doing this. Or did he win? No, it was an interim belt. The lightweight belt was an interim one, but his actual full fat world title was at super feather. So it shows you the size difference. If he can get down to, lightweight, maybe live the disciplined life, at 32, he's probably got something left. But there is a lot of miles on the clock. Now, Prograis 36. So on the evidence of his last few fights, it looks like the punch resistance is going. How much of that is age? He's had a lot of tough fights himself, apart from being whitewashed by Haney, beaten up by Catterall. He had a gruelling fight against Jose Zepeda, which he won, where he picked up the WBC super lightweight title. And you go back to when he fought Taylor. That was a barn burner, incredible fight. But he was also taken the distance by Terry Flanagan. And the guy has had a long career. From what I gather, he hasn't. He didn't have a long amateur career, or he started quite late, or something along those lines. But he has been a professional now, Regis Prograis, for 13 years. So, yeah, the commentators were saying, he started boxing late, but I don't know. Just because you don't have a long amateur career, I mean, he's quite clearly he's made a very good professional career for himself. Former champion, 2-time 140-pound champion. Can he get a 147 belt? It's looking a bit late in the day for me. But I'll tell you what, Regis Prograis versus JoJo Diaz 2, that is something that I would like to see, very much so. So yeah, go and have a look at this fight, because it was a very, like I say, extremely competitive. But for me personally, I thought Prograis, clearly won it. He didn't win every round, but there were, and he had some very wobbly moments. But I thought he won the fight. Go and have a look at it and tell me if you agree. Tell me if you got any thoughts about either of these guys. JoJo Diaz, 7 defeats in 9. I mean, fucking hell, and the guys still don't look finished. Gatekeeper is the word that springs to mind. But yeah, weirdly enough, I would say Diaz seems to have more of a future or more left in the tank than Prograis, but Prograis was the one that got the win. Anyway, let me know what you think. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel if you're new. And thank you very much for your support. I always appreciate it. Spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.